And all of a sudden we heard pop, 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 and I just grabbed my kids and ran.
It was scary. I mean, anybody would be scared when they hear gunshots and they just don't know what's going on.
It was horrible, just horrible.
It's awful. None of this should have ever happened.
It just breaks my heart to think that someone's lost their baby. And these poor kids haven't even started their lives. It's just heartbreaking.
A deadly mass shooting devastates our community. 8 innocent lives gone. 6 others injured remain in the hospital after a gunman fires into a crowd of shoppers at a popular North Texas outlet mall in Allen. This latest shooting comes just weeks before the end of the regular legislative session here in Austin. I'm Jack Fink, and this is a special edition of Eye on Politics from the Texas Capitol. We want to begin, though, by showing you those we lost. Christian LaCour, Aishwarya Takanda, Cindy, Q, and James Cho, Daniela and Sophia Mendoza, Elio Cumana Rivas. An Allen police officer shot and killed the gunman. Authorities say the suspect used an AR-style rifle, and they found 7 other weapons he had obtained legally. Investigators say the gunman believed in white supremacy ideology, but couldn't say yet why he did it. Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and Attorney General Ken Paxton attended a community vigil Sunday evening in Allen. The next morning, Governor Abbott held a news conference about border security. I asked him about the shooting in Allen.
Again, and if you would speak up, please. So first, obviously, we're extraordinarily concerned about the devastation that's happened to the families affected by what happened in Allen, as well as the entire Allen community. I was in Allen last night to visit with people in Allen, but just as important, to visit with law enforcement, investigators, leaders in the Allen and Collin County community to get to the bottom of what's going on. One thing I know that the people in Allen, but especially the families, they want to know right now why this happened, how it happened. And the investigators were unable to provide specifics at that time. The first step to leading to some type of resolution here, as well as providing information about the response needed from the state of Texas, is to know exactly why and how this happened. I believe in the coming days, the public will be much better informed about why and how this happened, and that will inform us as Texas leaders about next steps to take to try to prevent crimes like this from taking place in the future.
Calls for state lawmakers to take action before their session ends increased this week. On Monday, the gun reform group Moms Demand Action chanted in the rotunda, which reverberated throughout the Capitol and could be heard by lawmakers. They wanted House Bill 2744, which would raise the legal age to buy an AR-style firearm from 18 to 21, to be voted out of committee, where it had been left pending, and sent to the full House for a debate and vote. No meeting was scheduled, and it was the last day a committee could send a bill to the full House. Democratic lawmakers and the families who lost their children in the massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde last May spoke out.
I'm so sorry I'm not strong today. Maybe that's what y'all need to see. Because at the end of every day, I'm just a mom who wants my daughter back, and a mom who doesn't want another mom to know my pain.
I want you to look at some of the video, citizens in the state, of some of the young people coming out of that mall. I want you to look at the faces of children running with their parents.
Our children are not safe. Our families are not safe. We are not safe. Prove me wrong, Chairman Guillen, and bring HB 2744 to a vote today.
In 2 days, my niece is supposed to turn 11, but that'll never happen because that was taken from her. You don't know the gut punch I feel having to make bags in her memory instead of making bags with her to celebrate her birthday.
At the same time, across the rotunda, Republican State Representative Jeff Leach, who represents Allen, gave a speech on the House floor.
But increasingly, I'm finding freedom in saying what I think. And so I'm going to say something this morning. There's a lot we don't know. But one thing I do know is that this is happening way too much. And it doesn't have to be this way. I don't have the answers. I don't have a bill in front of you. I'm not sure there are any bills in front of us this morning, this session, that could have prevented this. I don't know. But I do know that it doesn't have to be this way.
Democratic State Representative John Bryant of Dallas said he tried to force a vote by the full House, which was then ordered into a recess. Then the chairman of the House Community Safety Select Committee, Ryan Guillen, called a meeting where a slim majority approved House Bill 2744 so it could move on to the full House. Two Republicans, including Representative Justin Holland of Heath, joined Democrats to pass the bill out of committee. Holland declined an interview request about his vote, but issued a statement that said in part, "I do not believe in gun control, and I certainly don't agree with the Biden administration's many attempts to undermine our gun rights. I think that increasing the age requirement for purchase lessens the possibility that the weapon is misused, while not undermining our fundamental right to keep and bear arms." Democratic State Representative Retta Bowers serves on the committee and voted for the bill.
I really believe that this is the voice of the people, that the people were heard, and it was the pressure that was being felt. But this is what can happen in this building when the people begin to really speak. And it is our job to do just that, to hear them, to make sure that we act appropriately. And I believe the pressure was felt. I have to say that overjoyed is not the right word, but I am truly glad and almost sighing a sense of relief because the bill did come out of committee.
Glenn Javins, a member of Moms Demand Action from Southlake, praised lawmakers.
I think it's fantastic for Texas. You know, over 75% of all Texans want to have a raise on the age of assault rifles to the age of 21. So representatives are beginning to listen to what we want.
But tears of joy turned to uncertainty as the Raise the Age bill faced a steep legislative hurdle, making it to the Calendars Committee, which decides which bills will make it to the House floor and when. It turns out Tuesday's deadline came and went, and the bill didn't make it to the full House. Representative Bryant told us he wasn't confident the bill would make it.
If it's not put on a calendar by today, typically that would not have a chance of passing the House unless we take extraordinary measures. And
Democratic lawmakers say they are not giving up yet and will continue to fight to get this bill heard by the full House. Also this week, we spoke with Republican State Representative Jeff Leach, who represents Allen, about what comes next at the Capitol.
I don't know if it's going to make it. Obviously, it was voted out of a House committee yesterday. I haven't yet had the opportunity to review the details and actually read the bill myself. But if and when it comes to the House floor, which I don't know whether it'll happen, I think you'll see what the Texas House does, and that's deliberate and debate publicly and openly in front of the people of Texas on an issue that's really important to them. I don't know how the vote will go down, but the Texas House is willing to consider any and all options to keep this from happening again. Well, look, there's a lot we don't know, but one thing that I do know as the state representative for Allen, this affected my community, my constituents. One thing that I do know is that this is happening way too much, and it doesn't have to be this way. It hasn't always been this way. And so I'm a proud Second Amendment supporter. I'm a fierce Second Amendment supporter, and I will continue to be. This legislature will continue to be. But if there are things that we can do to prevent this from happening again, then we ought to consider all those options. And so I know you'll see us have those debates publicly and openly, transparently in front of the people of Texas. That's what they expect and deserve and demand, and we're going to deliver on their behalf. Well, I'm not on the relevant committees that decide whether it gets to the floor or not. The bill that I do think we need to get on the floor to be debated and voted on is actually my bill. It was passed 31-0 out of the Senate by Senator Joan Huffman. It's the first bill the Senate passed. I'm carrying it in the House. I want that bill to get to the floor. It's relating to mental health checks and preventing guns from getting into the hands of people who have severe mental health issues, specifically juveniles. And that bill directly targets, it would make a big impact on this issue. I think it would prevent future violence like this. That bill, my bill, needs to get to the floor, and I'm hopeful and expectant that it will. Well, this is the problem with where we are as a country. When something like this happens, when a tragic event happens, everyone retreats to their corners, everyone reverts to their talking points. We attack the other side side attacks us. We ought to put all of that nonsense aside. We ought to be able to come together around a table and say, is what's happening in our state, in our country, good or bad? Hopefully we can all agree it's bad. It doesn't have to be this way. It needs to be fixed. And then once we get to that point where we can lock arms that there needs to be a solution, we can actually talk about what the solutions need to be. That's where I am as the state representative for Allen. I'm going to continue to fight vigorously for my values. I'm a proud Second Amendment supporter, but there are things that we need to do, things we can be doing now in this legislative session here in the state of Texas to prevent this from happening again, and I'm open to any and all options to do so. I'm going to vote for any bill that protects our constitutional rights, our Second Amendment rights to protect ourselves and our families. I'm not going to waver from that. I don't think I have to waver from that to also vote to keep guns out of the hands of people who don't need them, who want to break our laws, who want to do harm, who want to inflict violence. That's where I am on this issue. It's black and white to me, and I believe there are options on the table, bills on the table now that we can and should vote on to prevent this from happening again.
Representative Jeff Leach, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
Coming up, we'll speak with Democratic State Senator Roland Gutierrez of Uvalde about the gun debate. And then later, Republican State Senator Bob Hall talks to us as well. A special edition of Eye on Politics from the Texas Capitol on CBS News Texas comes right back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics from the Texas Capitol. Since the massacre in Uvalde last May, Democratic State Senator Roland Gutierrez of San Antonio, who represents Uvalde, has been the most outspoken gun reform advocate here at the Texas Capitol. This week, he held a news conference, and we spoke with him about his efforts.
Certainly very upset, very disappointed. I think you've seen the postings of the families and how disappointed they are. They had no preconceived notions. They knew the battle that they were up against. I constantly told them that that this bill was not going to get onto the floor in the House or the Senate. But nevertheless, they kept working and they kept trying. This bill got as far as it got because of their efforts. They all thanked me yesterday. But it was because of their efforts and their diligence and their hard work that it got where it got. I don't think everything is entirely lost. You're going to have House members put up amendments when they can. I have been putting up amendments in the Senate over the last several months, and I'll continue to do that. And we've got to get Republicans on record showing them to be not in favor of common sense gun solutions. And I think that we've already shown that. It's already very clear. My feelings are essentially that. I'm very disappointed. We've had about 2 to 3 different amendments that we would argue are germane, the parliamentarian is arguing are not germane in the Senate floor. You've seen House members try amendments on the House floor. We still have the amendment process. That's number one. 2 days ago, very quietly, I tried what's called a special order. I was called up to the front desk and they said, we're not going to recognize you for this. You can't do a special order. We argue we can. I'm going back and forth with the parliamentarian on that. She's giving me precedent why I can't. We're giving her precedent why we can. And so we'll keep up this fight. Probably not today, but in the coming days, we'll have a discussion on special orders. If the lieutenant governor wants to call on me, there's a rule for that too. He can't just not call on someone just because he feels like it. I think that every possible gun bill that we have filed and that others have filed that are common sense gun safety solutions have some real challenges from going forward. The best thing that we can see are amendment opportunities, like I said before. But here's the reality to folks at home. You saw what happened in your neighborhood, in your community in Allen. It's going to happen again. 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. That is the rapidity by which these events are happening in Texas. There'll be another mass shooting within the next 30 days. That's horrible to say, but that is the reality. And sometimes people don't see it as a mass shooting, but the definition is 4 people dead. And we've had an abundance of them this year alone. Only a couple that we've paid attention to, but it's happening, and it's happening in our communities every day. Listen, it's very clear where the Republicans are in their position on gun reform. They don't want any.
But why not have a debate?
Because they're afraid of the debate.
Why?
Because the vast majority of their constituents want gun reform, and every poll shows it, but they're afraid of their right-wing contingency. They're afraid of getting primaried, and that's the reality. They're so stuck on staying in office and staying in power that they don't want to do what's right for their constituents. First off, he obtained them through a private sale, some of those weapons, the shooter in Allen. Legal, for sure. Should we know about it? Should we have universal background checks to where at least there's some kind of registry that says, hey, Jack owns this gun. The DMV knows what kind of car you drive. Should we know that you own an AR-15? I think we should. Should we have regulations that say, we're not trying to take anybody's guns away, but should we have regulations that say an 18-year-old shouldn't buy an AR-15, shouldn't buy hundreds of rounds of ammunition? Or if they do, maybe somebody in law enforcement should know about it? Should we not have a law that says, this kid just bought 2 AR-15s and 1,000 rounds of ammunition, something smells. That's a significant event. Let's call the sheriff so the sheriff can go do what's called an extreme risk protective order, where they take the guns for a little bit and they say, what's wrong, son? What's happening? Let's look at your social media. We've failed in regulating guns. We have failed our communities, and people and children are dying. I got elected to fix problems. I didn't get elected to sit here and posit my views on things. I got elected to fix problems. We have a problem that is staring us squarely in the face. And people are dying at the mall, and people are dying in schools, and people are dying in church. This notion, this some weird fealty to a AR-15 rifle is nonsense. Some weird fealty to some Second Amendment argument that simply isn't true. And most legal scholars will tell you that states, by the way, the Supreme Court will tell you that states can regulate certain aspects of guns. Not a problem. You know, sure, I mean, we'll support it if it's going to do something to curb what's happening. This young man in Uvalde tried 2 straw purchases before he was 18. The problem with that bill is that it doesn't do anything past that point. At the minute the kid turns 18, he can go to the gun store, just like this kid did, buy an AR-15, same gun store in the same small town, the next day buy hundreds of rounds of ammunition, same small town, buy another AR-15, pick up his internet-bought AR-15. So that bill really doesn't do a whole lot. It helps some.
But doesn't it prevent people from knowing that the person they're buying for is prohibited?
Sure.
And it keeps them from doing it, and they would face jail time.
Sure. The kid had tried 2 straw purchases and failed because the people he was asking said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so yes, in a straw purchase sale, it would have some protection. But come on, we need a whole lot more. And the whole lot more that I'm asking for isn't all that much. Raising an age limit to access an AR-15 to 21, extreme risk protective orders, and closing the gun show loophole, that is what 76% of Texans are saying they want, and 66% of Republicans. To your point, it's already federal law. It's already a federal law. It's basically a reporting of juvenile records and mental health records of juveniles so that as they go on and turn 18, because in Texas, you cannot buy a handgun, no matter what the governor tells you. They abandoned their case. The Attorney General abandoned his appeal on protecting us. But still, most police departments can still arrest people for having a gun, a handgun, if they're 18, 19, or 20. Unfortunately, DPS has issued a memo to not have that done. And so we're in a weird state of affairs because of what this governor and our Attorney General have caused. But we still have an age limit on handguns in Texas on the books.
But this was a federal judge that struck it down.
A federal judge enjoining only DPS and 2 sheriff's departments.
So it's not statewide in your opinion?
It's not statewide at all. He's enjoined DPS and 2 sheriff's offices. That's it. Yeah, no, I'm a gun owner. I own about 9 guns. I haven't renewed my CHL because I don't carry it with me anymore. There was a time when I was traveling a lot to the border. I had a law office down in McAllen. We had heard from DPS that there were some threats against state judges and people with state official plates. And so at the time I felt that I needed it, less so now. I still have my hunting rifle, I still have my shotgun, still have the other guns safely stored away. I mean, I get it. I get what most of my constituents deal with in this space. I don't have an AR-15 and I don't need one. I just think that we need to have some common sense gun safety regulation. Most gun owners, like myself, that go out and go to the gun shop and buy them, they understand exactly what I'm talking about. They absolutely understand it. Farmers and ranchers, they don't want anybody and everybody carrying a gun. And we're really broken in this space and in this argument here. There's nothing wrong with regulating something that can kill you in a second. Not at all. Yeah, I filed a bill to have a DPS trooper in every school. My bill would have cost $2.1 billion. It's not the favored bill of the safe gun rights groups, but I'll do anything to keep our kids safe. We have to talk about the common denominator, which is access to guns in the hands of young people as well. But yeah, I would support the House bill over the Senate bill in a heartbeat because it's more money. What I don't like about it is there's also a volunteer cop component, kind of a retired police officer component, reducing liability and reducing transparency on them. And so those are some elements that I don't like about that. I'd rather put a DPS trooper in every school, and we have the money to do it.
How important are the accountability measures for school districts in these bills?
You know, the Senate bill has some accountability. There's an auditing, as you know, that's done every year. The fact is, the safety measures that we're doing and the money that we're putting into, while it's a tremendous amount of money, simply isn't enough. We have 8,300 campuses in Texas. That's a lot of schools to protect. A lot of windows to change out, a lot of doors to change out, systems in place that need to be changed. That is a tremendous amount of infrastructure change and not enough money to do it. And so if you're not going to do that, then you have to go to the core common denominator, and that's access of guns in the hands of people that shouldn't have them, mentally ill people like we saw in Allen. Well, listen, I'm not going to go down that road. You can be any color and be an extremist. Look at the Tarrio guy who was the head of the Proud Boys. He's Cuban-American. He's still an extremist. This guy was an extremist in Allen. He's a white supremacist. We were told after El Paso that it was mental health and it was white supremacism, and they established a domestic terrorism task force. The governor, Lieutenant Governor Steve McCraw, and others were on that task force. They were to meet quarterly. I don't know if that's happened, and we're trying to find out. And they established a unit at DPS that was supposed to track white supremacism, ranting on the internet. They were supposed to find the next guy that did what the El Paso shooter did in 2019. So here yet again, we have another failure by the Department of Public Safety. It's a different kind of failure than Uvalde, but a failure nonetheless. We should have this discussion. Government tells you that we're here to protect you, and yet we still have a very thin layer of protection, and we see what happens when the inevitable happens. What can we do differently? Eliminate guns. 9,000 extreme risk protective orders executed in Florida. They've worked. Every sheriff in Florida approves of this process. We get guns out of people that are saying crazy stuff because the cops can't see everything, right? And so if someone sees something and says something, then we can go grab those guns for a little bit, go in front of a judge and say, hello, Mr. Tario or Mr. Sanchez or Mr. Johnson or Mr. Smith or Ms. Smith. What's going on here? Let's look at these threats. What's up with these threats here? That's common sense. Why do we want guns in the hands of mentally ill people? How is the NRA and this governor and other people like him, how are they okay with that? Are you okay with it? Having AR-15s in the hands of someone who's mentally ill? And can government go find that? And the answer is, if you had extreme risk protective orders, you can. And Florida has done it with incredible success. Nobody's crying out and saying, oh, you know, they took my guns. Because the people that go into those hearings are usually people who have a problem. And we need to address it. So I'll tell you what I've told everybody that's asked me this question. I've got 2.5 weeks left to serve here and to try to do something for these families. And I'm going to take every minute of those 2.5 weeks that are left to try to effectuate something in this space. And if that means I'm just going to yell and scream about this issue, I'm going to yell and scream about this issue. But I'm going to try through the amendment process to create change. I'll make those decisions when I leave this building. Probably closer to July, I'll make those decisions. And so far as effectuating change, I think that we all have to be advocates for common sense solutions. Here, Washington, doesn't matter. We have to be advocates for common sense. We are broken as a nation. We are broken when it comes to guns because right-wing extremists have got us down this road of protecting a constitutional amendment, and they're giving us a failed argument that a lot of people are buying off on. The fact is, states can regulate access to guns. They can, and the Bruin decision says so. We need to be having these discussions in Texas and across this country. But decisions about my future are going to have to wait until I'm done here.
Democratic State Senator Roland Gutierrez of San Antonio, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
When we come back, Republican State Senator Bob Hall, a strong Second Amendment supporter, disagrees with Senator Gutierrez. Our interview with him when Eye on Politics from the Texas Capitol on CBS News Texas comes right back. This week, we invited various Republican state lawmakers to discuss with us the calls for more gun reforms. Senator Bob Hall of Edgewood in North Texas spoke with us and disagreed with Senator Gutierrez on gun sale restrictions.
Well, first let me say that the loss of life is very important. That's a serious issue, and I hate to see lives lost, whether it was in Allen or whether it was down in Brownsville, where an SUV killed about the same number of people. And the issue is not the vehicle. We're not going to ban SUVs because it plowed into some folks, and it's not the first time that's happened. And guns. And people don't like to hear it, but it's not guns, it's people. We have a people problem, and that's what we need to address, is the issue of people. The gun issue, the calling for the ban on assault weapons. I can't find any way that could even define what an assault weapon is, for one thing. And the issue of the age that they're talking about, Multiple federal courts have already ruled that the age limitation on gun purchases is unconstitutional. So for us to pass another law that's unconstitutional makes no sense at all. And try to write a law to ban something that nobody can even define would make no sense at all. And so what we need to be addressing is making sure that people are adequately protected. They have the opportunity to self-defense. We made great strides last session with our constitutional carry, and we are making progress with adding protection with our schools. We're putting money into hardening our schools, putting money into making resource officers, more of them available, the number of bills to add folks. Because when it comes down to it, the only thing that will stop a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun. And that's what we need. We have been fortunate in Allen, there was a good person that was available. There may have been others, we'll never know for sure. But people need to have the ability to be able to defend themselves, and we need to start addressing the problems we have in our society that's leading people to these violent acts. Okay, so what is it you say the common denominator or that style? Is it the length of the barrel? Is it the stock that folds? Is it the pistol grip? Is it semi-automatic? Because we have guns that are 22s, one of the most popular one for hunting rabbits is a Ruger 1022. Style-wise, it has a magazine. It can hold 30 rounds. It fires at about the same rate, and the round that comes out of it is about the same diameter, a little less power behind it. But there's, to define what it would be, so that would be, do we get rid of all semi-automatics? That same weapon you're talking about can be in the style that meets the definition of a pistol. So I point out coming up with a definition that doesn't take a significant number of weapons that can be used for self-defense. You got to remember, every time you talk about wanting to restrict someone that would use it in a bad way, you're keeping a person who would use it in a good way from having it. And so we got to be careful. As you well know, that every bill we pass down here is like a two-edged sword. There are two edges to every bill. You try to get that one edge of what you want done very, very sharp, but it's got a second edge that has unintended consequences. And I'm afraid what we'd be doing is heading down a road in which you had a sword that had two very sharp edges to it, and the unintended consequences would probably put us in worse shape than what we are. I think we have a process now that could be done. I mean, we have a process if people have a mental problem. It's that people are not stepping up and reporting it. If we had red flag laws for a number of these, where they talk about after the fact, oh, this person wrote this person did this, said that, or is acting like this, where everybody, but nobody takes action to do anything about it. That's and I'm talking about treatment they need, not just because they would go out and harm somebody. We're talking about actions of people that are going to harm themselves, and it doesn't have to be a gun. It can be an automobile. I think we'll find that some of these cases of people have just as bad a mental problem that is being ignored. And the other side of that is the potential abuse of of every so-called red flag law I've seen has an unintended consequences of it's wide open for abuse for someone that just doesn't like to see self-defense. So we be very careful when we start going down that road. I think if there was an easy fix to keeping guns out of the hands that was limited to just people who were going to do harm with them, I think it would have already been done. The problem you're faced with is any method you come up with or any plan to keep guns out of one set of hands keeps it out of a whole lot of other hands. And that starts treading on our natural God-given right to self-defense. I can't speak for them, but I would say that we think with about as far as what we could go. I mean, I think that one of the things that attracts these shooters are the gun-free zones, where they know they're not going to have any opposition. That's kind of a magnet for them. One of the things I think we could do is significantly reduce the gun-free zones. But
is that the case at the shopping center?
I don't know if that's necessary. Again, you can't pick out any one particular place. I haven't been to that shopping center. I don't think it was, but I also have been told that there are a lot of stores up there that have the 30-06, 30-07 signs, which mean that people are going to have to leave their weapon in their car to go shop there. So I don't know how many people that might have either thought that, because we have the gun-free zones in Texas are very perverse. I mean, there are lots of them. And so I don't know how many people may have. A lot of stores still put up the old sign that said no weapons allowed unless you have a permit, the various signs up there, that may have been trying to abide by those and left their weapon in the car that could have stopped someone. I think we're moving in an age that people need to protect it. If the shopping malls and centers are going to have 30-06, 30-07s not allowing people to carry, I think they have a responsibility to provide more security.
Senator Bob Hall, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all for this special edition of Eye on Politics from the Texas Capitol in Austin. Thank you for watching. I'm Jack Fink. You're watching CBS News Texas.